This book, which many of you picked up as you came in, lays out in detail, in writing, my substantive ideas on all the big issues that face this country. And I put them in writing so you can hold me to them. You don't have to guess when you go to the caucus what I stand for. It's all right here in writing. But I want to say to you very clearly, this book is not worth the paper it's written on if you don't have a president who's willing to fight for you. Because how long have we been talking about universal health care, global warming, fair trade, and tax policy? You've got to have somebody who's ready for this fight. And, you know, the truth is, having grown up the way I grew up, in mill towns and mill villages, we had to fight just to survive, as many of you did. You grew up, some of you grew up in rough neighborhoods. You know, I can still remember coming home when I was young, having gotten in a fight with an older kid, got my butt kicked, by the way. Came home complaining to my father about it, and my father said, "Son, I don't ever want to hear about you starting a fight, but I don't want to ever hear that you walked away from one. Because if you're not ready and willing to stand up for yourself, no one will stand up for you." And so I did. I fought, I survived, I stood up for myself, and then it was all about me. But then I spent 20 years in courtrooms representing you and families just like yours, and we'd walk into that courtroom, and this was against the same big corporations that I've been talking about. And it would be us on one side, and on the other side would be an army of corporate lawyers with all the money in the world arrayed behind them. And this is what I learned. First, you can't nice these people to death. They couldn't care less how nice you are. They treat this as trench war. And that's exactly what it was. But I also learned that if you're tough enough, if you're willing to fight, if you got some guts, if you're smart enough and willing to work hard enough, you can beat these people. You can. Because we won over and over and over. And we can win. We can win this battle. We can change and transform this country. We can make absolutely certain that our children and our grandchildren and their children get the same kind of opportunities that have been available to us. But the one thing I want to say, I listened to Elizabeth and Mary talk about the election and the issue of electability. You know, and I'm proud of the fact that in the polls, I show as the strongest candidate against all the Republicans and beating all the Republicans. I'm glad about that. But I want to say something more substantive. This thing that I'm talking about now, that corporate greed and corporate power and their iron-fisted grip on your democracy, that it's stealing your children's future and it's destroying the middle class, it's not just doing it to Democrats. It's doing it to independents. It's doing it to Republicans. They believe the same thing that I'm talking to you about today. There is no place in America that I can't go and talk about this, and if we're willing to say it honestly and directly, that they'll know it's the truth. And the other thing they'll know when I say it is it's not something I read in a book, and it's not something that's coming from up here. It's coming from right here. And that matters. The reason it matters is because when the fight gets tough, if you've got a politician who thinks about this politically, they're going to choose the political way out. But when the fighting gets tough and you've got somebody that believes in their heart and soul and is sincere and will fight with everything they've got, they will never back away. You can tell the difference. Every one of you can tell the difference between somebody giving an academic speech and somebody who's coming from right here. You know the difference. And that difference is going to matter when the going gets tough. And the tough going is coming. You can count on that. You can't be naive about this. We have a very tough fight in front of us against these entrenched interests. But it's a fight for the future of our children, for the future of our grandchildren and their children. It's a fight against this entrenched, moneyed interest. And it's a fight to continue the legacy of our parents and grandparents and all their work and sacrifice for us. You know, I look at what's happening in this country that I love so much and would do anything for. And this is what I see. I see that last year ExxonMobil had record profits, billions and billions and billions of dollars. I see that the CEO of one of the biggest health insurance companies in America last year did not make tens of millions of dollars. He made hundreds of millions of dollars. In 1 year, hundreds of millions of dollars. I see that the top 1% of income earners took twice as much of America's income as they did 20, 25 years ago. It's not complicated. The biggest companies in America, their profits are through the roof. The richest Americans are getting much richer. At what cost? At what cost? The cost is damage to the middle class. The cost is killing the promise of America for our children and for our grandchildren. We can't stand idly by and let this continue to happen. We can't. It's time for us to speak up. It is time for us to stand up. It is time for us to say enough is enough. And I take that picture that I just described, and then take it for just a minute and put it side by side in your head with this picture of America. Tonight, 47 million Americans will go to bed knowing that if their child gets sick, they will have to go to the emergency room and beg for health care, while the CEO of this health insurance company makes hundreds of millions of dollars. Tomorrow, there will be women going to see their doctor for an exam, and they're going to be diagnosed with breast cancer, much the way that Elizabeth was. But we have great health care coverage. Some of these women will have no health care coverage. What are they supposed to do? You can't get chemotherapy in the emergency room. It doesn't work. Where are they supposed to go? Tomorrow morning, 37 million people in the richest country on the planet will wake up literally worried about feeding and clothing their children, living in poverty, all while ExxonMobil's profits continue to soar. Elizabeth and Mary and I went to a shelter in Des Moines just a couple weeks ago, where they took in mothers, single mothers, with their children who had no place to live. It was an amazing place, by the way. The people who ran it were amazing. Mary had been there many times, and the families were amazing. But we were there, and I asked the people who ran the place, I said, so do you ever have to turn families away? Yes. They said just a few months ago they turned 70, 75 families away in 1 month. And I said, were these single moms? Yes. With children? Some of them as many as 3 or 4 children. And so I said, what happened to them when you turned them away? Where did they go? Back to the street. Back to their cars. Children back on the street in America. Last year, 35 million people went hungry in America. That's roughly the population of California. 35 million with not enough to eat. Tonight, 200,000 men and women who proudly wore our uniform, the veterans, served this country patriotically, proudly, are going to go to sleep under bridges and on grates. Enough is enough. We're so much better than this. America's so much better than this. It's time for us to stand up. It's time for us to say, we're not going to let this continue. We're not going to let these people steal our children's future. And we're actually going to stand up for middle-class families and for 47 million Americans who have no health care coverage and 37 million who live in poverty. We're going to stand up for James Lowe and people like him who live in the darkness and have no health care coverage. We're going to stand up for these single mothers who have no place to live with their children. Because when we do that as a nation, it says something about who we are. It says something about what's inside us. It says something about the character of America. And I believe in the character of America. I believe in the character of you.